Shalom, Yasharallah. This your brother Dawadah, coming back at you with this here truth again. First and foremost, I want to give all praise unto Yahawah, Bahashim, YAHAWASHI, Bahashim, Ruchakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of great millstone that taught us this truth and that rule well. And salutation and much love for you, I can pushing this truth and sincerity on the four corners of the earth and enduring afflictions to feed and edify the elect. So I want to jump into this here lesson, which was inspired, pretty much by the brothers from Dallas, the Atlanta camp, and also from the Tampa camp. Nevertheless, there was a sit down that was done, dealing with this here the legacy. All right, this legacy that we have. Hey man, and that was a real a good lesson, really inspiring and uplifting lesson. You can check that video out on our main page. GMS Tampa Bay Saints. But nevertheless, a couple points that a couple of the brothers brought out was, one thing that kind of stuck with me was the fact of let me see. You know what? Let me pull it out the scriptures. See where it's at. All right, this is Revelation 14 and 13. It says, I heard a voice from heaven saying unto me, right, blessed are the dead which die in Yahawah from henceforth. Yea, saith the Spirit, that they may rest from their labors and that their works do follow them. All right. So this is a really deep scripture, but nevertheless, one of the brothers wound up saying it a little different. They didn't necessarily quote this scripture, but all in all saying the same thing, but it was posed as a question, like, you're doing this here work or whatever, whatnot, you happen to die while you're in this truth. All right. But guess what? Your works, like the scriptures say here, they're going to follow you, but, thinking about it, like how the brother wound up saying, it was more or less like, you're doing this here work, and even if you don't see salvation on this here side, let's just say you die tomorrow or something like that, right? Your works are gonna follow you. But look also at the legacy that you left on this here earth, man. All right, you picked up the plow. All right, you put up some videos. You was on the highways and the byways, man. You have to understand, especially if you're a teacher in this thing, man. I gotta check myself on this a lot of the times. Like, yo, man, I'm not just just reading scriptures or whatever, whatnot. There's sheep that's actually out there that's eating, being edified and being built up, being drawn back into the Most High and YAHAWASHI through the lessons that we're doing. All right, it's a big major role that we're playing, and us in these shoes that we're in, we don't really think of ourselves like way more highly than anybody else, because being humble and stuff like that. But nevertheless, hey, some of the viewers or whatever, whatnot, hey, they, they'll comment in the comment section to let us know, like, hey, the water for the lesson or whatever, whatnot, and really I encourage those things because for you viewers, you don't really know what the brothers are going through and the things that they're going through, whatever, whatnot, and just something like, a comment on a video is like, damn, or the water, I was fed with that, or just the water, which is like, thanks, but nevertheless, just something like that it's also a spirit boost, a matter of fact, well, here's an elder that, matter of fact, I'll just go ahead and say from Yashawama from Dallas, I've been noticing a couple of times that he'll comment on my videos and be like, oh shit, man, this is somebody, that's, humbly saying somebody big in this here truth, that's watching my videos. Who am I? You know what I'm saying? So on and so forth. But nevertheless, hey man, like, I believe it was the brother Ariala from Dallas that wound up saying this, like, yo, even if you die in this here truth, you're going to leave a legacy on this here earth, man. All right. There's going to be people that remember certain things and so on and so forth, like, you have, King Masha, right? I didn't ever know him or anything like that, but you still hear the apostles and the elders talking about this man, because of the fact that they learned up under him and so on and so forth, so that, Abba Bivens, all these different things. Hey, really, we were reading the scriptures. You look at the men that was before us, you know what I'm saying? They all left a legacy that we still reading until this same day. All right. You know what? I'll oh man. Matter of fact, I'll come back to that. But let me get out of here real quick. We're gonna start here in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 16. But like I said, I just wanted to add on to that a little bit. Hang on, real quick. Let me write something down. Quick precept that I said I'm gonna come back to. But nevertheless, just touching on this here, like an add on into, that the lesson that was beautifully done, I wanted to just retouch on this thing because, like I said, I was, watched the video a couple times actually, and just was meditating on that. This here thing that we're in is oh, it's a lot. This here thing that we're in is way bigger than what we can even imagine. You know what I'm saying? This thing is way big. Like, For instance, you men of the Lord that's out on the highways and the byways prophesying in truth and sincerity. Do you not realize that the vibration that you're pushing out on this here earth is changing the whole globe? The entire globe now is basically focusing on, one way or another, on the Israelites, you know? Like the scripture say, every knee shall bow, you know, unto YAHAWASHI. So right now, what people don't realize, especially with the judgment that's going out around the whole earth, the Most High is making it to where you're going to have to deal with him. You know, you can't escape the elephant in the room no more. All right, now, everybody, whether you're atheist or, how you say it, Islamic, you know what I'm saying, or Buddhist or whatever, whatnot, you have to basically acknowledge YAHAWASHI, man. All right, when these plagues and these things are coming, all right, like the Wuhan or the coronavirus out there in China, you know what I'm saying? The whole globe is basically, everybody in the globe pretty much know about that, you see? But the Lord is bringing out this here judgment, so guess what? You have to acknowledge that, all right? But nevertheless, you men that's on the highways and the byways pushing out this here truth, man, all right? You are changing the whole vibration of the earth, man. So you can go back and see this, you know, from, you know, the star hat, you know, beforehand a little bit, you know, a couple years back, you know? You walk around with a beard on your face, you know what I'm saying? Women look at you all like, oh, you a scraggly dude or whatever, whatnot. You need to clean that up or whatever, whatnot. You know, you go to a job, people look at you all weird and things like that, you know. But nowadays, you know, you be looked at weird. You know, women don't even want to talk to you if you ain't got no beard nowadays. You know what I'm saying? They want these big full beards. The Rick Ross be lining this stuff up. But nevertheless, these women nowadays, they want, you know, men that have these beards like that now. You know, that's just one little small thing, you know. Also, you know, pushing out the so-called, we're not black. You know, we're not black. Don't call us black folks no more. You know, we done found out who we are. You know, on some sense of a level, you hear a lot of different people saying these same things, you know, also talking about, you know, they say it in other words, you know, like black excellence. And we got they got a group called B1. What does it stand for? Black first, you know. But nevertheless, you're seeing all these different things like that. You're seeing all these different groups of so-called black people banding together and like, we need to think about ourselves first and foremost. But when you really decipher what's really going on, whether they know what, you know the truth or not, you know what I'm saying? That's that vibration of what the tribes getting back together. The tribes is trying to separate themselves from Esau, you know, whether they doing it righteously or not, you know what I'm saying? They just want to go build black communities or whatever, whatnot, and get reparations and get their own state here in America, you know what I'm saying? Like, or wherever you are in the globe, you know that Esau gonna come in and war with your ass. You ain't got no military or no resources. But nevertheless, that whole mindset that make Jake be thinking about stuff like that, all right, be making Jake think about reparations and things like that, make Jake reference slavery and things like that, all right, was because we're pushing out this here vibration on the earth, man, all right, because, you know, I remember when I first, you know, well, not to say came into truth, but when I first came into a camp and went out on the highways and the byways, man, at that point, and this was maybe like 2 years ago, or coming up on the third year, you know, because I'm about to go into my third Passover, but nevertheless, back in those times, you know, as we were out there fishing or whatever, whatnot, you know, one of the things we would, you know, people walk by, just like Ezekiel 37 say, what does thou meanest by these? Talking about the two sticks, you know. But nevertheless, when people, you know, Jacob walked by, Judah walked by, I'm like, what you mean Negroes, so-called Negroes, you know, looking at the sign, you know, like, well, what's your nationality? And some of them like, oh, I don't really know, or whatever, whatnot, you know. So we'll go to the, all right, well, are you a descendant of the slave trade? You know what I'm saying? Are you, you know, your people descend from, you know, those people that came over here in slavery? No, we ain't slaves. We ain't never been slaves, you know. That's how Jake used to talk back in the days. Jake would make up all kind of different excuses to why they wasn't, you know, a part of the so-called slave trade. Nah, we ain't come from Africa, which now knowing this here truth, which they don't understand the truth like that. You know what I'm saying? A lot of Jake would say, nah, we Native American Indians, or we, you know, so on and so forth. When in reality, yo, a lot of you so-called people that think that, a lot of you so-called black people that think you black people, you're not really even black people. You actually are like Reubenites and stuff like that. And you could be a Gadite, you know. I know, like, in the area where I live at, out here, you know, there's two little small cities that's inside of another city. Show you how they do Jake. You know what I'm saying? There's one city called Bradenton, Florida, which is like an actual city. Then they got two smaller cities inside. They got multiple cities, but, you know, they got two smaller cities inside of Bradenton, Florida. All right, one of them is called Onico and the other one's called Samoset. All right, now both of these are old and they still pretty much the same thing. All right, areas where Reuben was at, heavily, like we in an area where Reuben was heavily at. You know, when you go up to like Tampa, to the casino, all right, the Hard Rock, they call it the Hard Rock Casino, the Seminole Hard Rock Casino, all right, because this is who was inhabiting this here area of Florida, all right, the Seminole Indians. And when you go back and look at a lot of the images of them, they actually look like so-called black people, you know what I'm saying? But nevertheless, you know, Jake would always try to say that, oh, no, we ain't come from the slave trade or whatever, whatnot. But now you're seeing, you know, these groups come up, ADOS, American descendants of the slave trade, basically. So now Jake is owning their history, you know, owning certain things, you know. Now they calling out the so-called white man or whatever, whatnot, man. And one of the brothers sent a video, in a group chat or whatever, whatnot, of this Jake that was bugging out on the subway. He wasn't even bugging out because actually Jake was in the right spirit, man. And he was, but in a carnal sense to the rest of the world, he was bugging out. But Jake was out there, and not to say that he's in the truth as far as he's on the highways and byways preaching, you know what I'm saying? But Jake was just in the truth, or obviously he came across the truth some kind of way, or his spirit was just crying out. He was over here talking about how, basically the witchcraft that they pulling out here on our people, you know what I'm saying, with this LGBTQ community, about the L's in that alphabet raising up our kids, they go and adopt our kids, and then they basically go and torture their ass and molest them and so on and so forth, But nevertheless, you even have people like that's raising up and cussing out Esau or whatever, whatnot, You have all kind of these different people that's not in the truth or whatever, whatnot, that's out here, you know what I'm saying? They know in their spirit or whatever, whatnot, they know something is a little wrong, like, hold up, something ain't right here, And they realizing that it's Esau, Internationally, a lot of these other nations now, are looking at Esau like, are thou become weak as we? Or is this the man that did make the earth to tremble? You know what I'm saying? Is this the man? You know what I'm saying? But nevertheless, it's all in all was ultimately because of the Most High. But what? The Most High will do nothing until unless at least he revealed his secrets unto the servants, the prophets. The prophets will go out on the highways and the byways and prophesy these things, but tell you before it happened. All right. And now it's all happening. Just like the persecution that's coming down on us right now, because they've been hearing us talking about Esau's downfall and the calamities that's coming here to America. But now they actually starting to feel these curses falling on them. Now guess what's coming around the corner? The persecution. All right, we've been telling you that the RFID chip is the mark of the beast. Now they're pushing that out heavily. All these different things. The Chariots is coming back. Now the Space Force is out. You see what I'm saying? All these different things are moving and shaking right now. And it all started from what? Ultimately the Most High raising up the prophets, but the prophets going on the highways and the byways and prophesying. All right. So whether you know it or not, if everything was the end all be all today, and from here on out, we would just look back at this point in time as in history. Like, you would have to think about who is making these changes on its earth. Now, ultimately, I have to keep saying this. We know it's the Most High, all right? But he has tools that he's using. So what you see now is the men of the Lord that's on the highways and the byways. It's out here prophesying and pushing out this here vibration on the earth, all right? Now the Most High is going to move. The Most High is not going to move unless he give you that there warning, all right? At least you have a cloak for your sins, all right? You'd be like, well, I ain't know no better. But nevertheless, the Most High sent out his prophets, all right? But nevertheless, Jeremiah 28:8, the prophets that have been before me and of thee of old. Let me get it real quick. Jeremiah 28:8 says, the prophets that have been before me and before thee of old prophesy both against many countries and against great kingdoms of war and of evil and of pestilence. So when you go back in the history of these great kingdoms, Babylon, Medo-Persia, so on and so forth, and all these different great kingdoms, guess what? There was always prophets that came and prophesied the downfall of these different places or whatever, whatnot, And you can ultimately go back to what? The book of Daniel with Nebuchadnezzar's dream, all right? Because ultimately it's telling you right there, like, yo, you the head of gold, then there's going to come up another kingdom that's inferior unto you, you know what I'm saying, and so on and so forth. So dealing with that, that was pretty much prophesying all these here kingdoms, that they was ultimately going to wind up falling, all right? But nevertheless, if you was to take a snapshot of what we've been doing and look back of it today, all right, up into this here day when, let's say, time and everything stops, you would see that what? The thing that started bringing down Babylon the Great, it started with the prophets prophesying, or the Most High waking us up, and then we go out there and prophesying, But this is the vibration, and this is the legacy that you're leaving as of right now, All the people that know that they're Israelites, Hey, when I believe it was the beginning of this year or real late last year, either December or January, they coming out with the propaganda, after one of those propaganda stories about, Jake basically, I think he either stabbed or did something like that, stabbed up some Amalekites, some so-called Jewish people, right? Then right after that, they was showing on the news about these anti-Semitic signs that said YAHAWASHI is coming back, and I remember just super rejoicing and all that and thanking the Most High, you know what I'm saying? Like, yo, the fact of the matter, discerning this with your spiritual eyes, like, why do they put the name Yahawashi up, all right? Why didn't they put up the name of Ahaya or Jesus Christ or whatever, whatnot? Why do they say that the Yahawashi was an anti-Semitic name, Or why didn't they say Yeshua? Because there's a bunch of different names that people, because they know that his name wasn't Jesus, but nevertheless, so they'd be like Yeshua, you know what I'm saying? Things like that and so on and so forth. So why didn't they put up those names and say that was anti-Semitic, But looking at that sign and the way that they were moving from that, through the Spirit, I was able to see, like, you know what, the water YAHAWASHI, YAHAWAH, not only that you woke me up into this here truth, but, you know what I'm saying? And I started by watching a lot of the other camps or whatever, whatnot. But the camp that I wound up, you know, being drawn to and joining the camp was what? GMS. All right. And learning up under the apostles and elders and on down from there. All right. Getting the 100% truth. And that, you know, we don't just say we got 100% truth or whatever, whatnot. You know what I'm saying? And it's not like, and, you know, and what I'm explaining now kind of backs all these things up. It's not just, you know, we're not just repeating certain things. When you really look at it, like, all right, well, what name are they demonizing? Who told you what that name was? How did you find that name out? How did you find out you was an Israelite? So all you people that know that you Israelites right now, and you know the name of the Most High is Yahawah, and his son's name is YAHAWASHI, all right, you learned that from men that taught you that, all right? You didn't just wake up one day with that name in your mouth, all right? You didn't just wake up with that. So there was some men that taught you that beforehand, you know, that taught you that, all right? So the people that know these names, know that they're Israelites, all stem from the legacy that somebody had, or the seeds that a man planted beforehand, all right? So, hey, you just looking at these things, hey, man, this is not a really a light thing to nothing to take lightly, you know, nothing to despise or nothing to look over as something just small. You know, some people that's in the world be like, y'all always preaching, ain't nothing happening, y'all still out there doing this or doing that, you know. And a lot of people that see us, that's constantly see us, like maybe they see us park every time or see us out there every week, you know, even these people like, damn, y'all, one thing I can say about y'all, y'all are diligent, y'all are out here every week, you know what I'm saying? Y'all are very diligent. You know, a lot of people that see us, you know, especially where we park, you know, we walk up to camp, the cops that be out there, you know what I'm saying? They already know we be out there. We had some cops out there one day like, hey, we were waiting on y'all. Where y'all was at, you know? A couple minutes later, whatever, whatnot. But guess what? That's that legacy that we're leaving because they already know. Like, you know what? These guys going to come out here. They're going to be preaching. You know what I'm saying? They're not going to be using the choicest of words that, you know, people like to hear. You know what I'm saying? And the topics that they going into ain't nothing that's going to make these Edomites comfortable, or really anybody comfortable talking about people going into slavery and stuff like that. So, you know what I'm saying? But they know that, like, well, they don't really cause no trouble or nothing like that. And if there's ever a police call, we have to go over there, you know, there's some kind of like altercation. We know that these guys ain't violent guys because we dealt with these people. We know their history and their track record. All right. We know how these guys get down. So guess what? You know, and also going into those a couple videos, you know, Apostle Ramlab and also Elder Yashawambo touched on a same topic, you know, the ad hominem spirit, you know. But nevertheless, you know, they know ultimately that we're not out there striking up violence. You know, we're not out there creating fights and things like that. So these are small steps of the legacy that we're already leaving, and we ain't even left this place yet. You know, how much more when we get into the kingdom? All right. So nevertheless, let me just run through some scriptures. I got quite a bit of scriptures to run through. This is Jeremiah 16. I'm starting at verse 14. Therefore, behold, the days come, saith Yahweh power, that it should be no more said, Yahweh liveth, that brought up the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt. Now, I believe one of the brothers on the live stream wound up mentioning this, you know, because they kept going into like Noah and so on and so forth, right? Like, yo, you know, they still talk about Noah and Noah's Ark. Like every what do you call it? Every, I don't want to say civilization, but I guess every civilization, all right, all have a flood story. Every last one of them have a flood story. All right. And who was the father that was on that boat? You know what I'm saying? There was Noah. All right. Then he had his 3 sons, and then everybody comes from that. All right. His 3 sons. All right. So we still tell the story of Noah and the ark. All right. And Noah and the flood. All right. We still tell the story. Or you see movies about it still to this same day, man. All right. And that was early off in the book of Genesis. That was when the first world was destroyed, man. You know what I'm saying? That was, hey, that was before you had an Israelite, man. That was before you had really Shemites. You see what I'm saying? Like, yo, you know what I mean? This was like way beforehand, but guess what? We still here, and we still, how do you say, not to really say regurgitate or retort that same story, but we still retell that same story to this same day, man, and make movies about that. So even the things that, you know, Noah out there preaching for 120 years and building this here ark and hearkening into the word of the Lord, you know what I'm saying? That went down in history, and we still have it unto the same day, man. All right. But then you also have like what Moses. All right. Like, you know, Moses led the children of Israel up out of the land of Egypt. You know what I'm saying? Well, the Most High did using Moses. All right. But Moses went up, you know, the story of how Moses was second in command over all of Egypt. But guess what? He wound up stepping down, all right, to suffer with his own people, man. All right. Then he went into the face of Pharaoh to deliver the message to let my people go. All right. But nevertheless, you know, we still tell this story today. This is like one of the greatest biblical stories that's still being retold to the same day, man. I believe like the first one would, maybe not. I mean, well, maybe it is because they, you know, actually it probably is the story of Moses in Exodus. All right, it's probably like the #1 story. Then probably like Noah's Ark, then probably the story of Yahawashi. And I say the story of Yahawashi, like the crucifixion, that part, you know what I'm saying? What they would call the Passion, all right? But nevertheless, you know, because they don't really televise that, because that's really gruesome and stuff, so on and so forth. But out of Noah and the Ark story and the Exodus story, you know, they can make cartoons out of these things like that, you know what I'm saying? So kids can devour these stories. You know, these are like, you know, they in Sunday school with the kids, they tell these stories a lot. They don't really go too much into the crucifixion of Yahawashi. All right, even though we know that Yahawashi is way more popular, the most popular person has ever been on the planet Earth. Like, that's just point blank period. There's more information about him than any other person on the face of the earth, or has ever been on the face of the earth, has ever walked on the earth, and there's more information about him than any other object or item that's ever been on the face of the earth. All right, and we ain't even talking about biblical sources. We talking about all non-biblical sources, all right? So, you know, technically he's the most popular person that has ever been on the face of the earth, all right? But nevertheless, just looking at the legacies that was left from what the Exodus, all right, they still tell that story to the same day. But guess what? Verse 14, now going back to verse 13, Moses was the one, you know what I'm saying, was the one that was chosen to lead the children of Israel up out of Egypt, right? Verse 14, therefore, behold, the days come, saith Yahweh, that it should be no more said, Yahweh liveth, that brought up the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt. All right, so that story of Moses in Exodus is not going to be told no more, all right? It's going to be overshadowed by this new deliverance, all right? Verse 15, but Yahweh liveth, that brought up the children of Israel from the land of the north, all right? Talking about here in the United States, and from all the lands whether they have been driven, all right, because we were scattered to the four corners of the earth, all right? But here in America, which is Babylon the Great, all right, this is going to be the main focal point, all right? Because like here, literally here, all right, well, really over here in all the Americas, all right, but nevertheless, here in the United States, all right, is like I said, over here in the Americas, you only got Esau and Jacob over here, right? You know, the northern and the southern kingdom and plus Esau over here. You don't really have, I mean, you have Moabites and whatever, whatnot, but they don't have no countries over here, you know what I'm saying? It's not like, you know, all the countries over here, you got the United States of America and Canada, Edomite countries, and all the other countries are all northern kingdom countries, basically. You know what I'm saying? So the greatest deliverance is pretty much going to be here in America, Babylon the Great, you know, which is also prophesied for their downfall, all right? But nevertheless, you know, let me go, verse 16. Behold, I will send for many fishers, saith Yahweh, and they shall fish them. Going into what? Going in, we can grab this too, Ezekiel 37, the valley of the dry bones, all right? Like I said, how do you know the name of Yahweh? How do you know the name of Yahawashi? How do you know that you're an Israelite, all right? How do you know that you fit the prophecies, all right? Because why? The Lord revealed his secrets unto the servants of prophets, and then commanded them to go on the highways and the byways and to prophesy and to go fish in the elect to reel them in. All right. So again, this is going down in history to right now as we speak too. In fact, it was already written in history. All right. Because Ezekiel 37 didn't take place in Ezekiel's time. Like, that's going on right now. All right. Ezekiel didn't walk around with no two sticks. That's talking about us with the signs, 12 tribe signs that you see us with on the highways and the byways. Ezekiel didn't see, well, he probably saw the valley of the dry bones as a vision, but that wasn't nothing like he walked outside his house and that was the condition that's going on every day. Like how we walk outside of our house and the condition that's going on right now is what? Donald Trump is the actual president right now. This is not a vision that we see far off into the future. All right. But nevertheless, we're living in a time of Ezekiel 37 right now, man. All right. The valley of the dry bones being raised. Hey, the valley. All right. Well, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, that's here in America, Babylon the Great. All right. So that valley full of the dry bones. All right. Also, like in the book of Revelation, said that there are dead bodies laid in the street of the great city. All right. That was spiritually called Sodom and Egypt. That's here in America, man. All right. But nevertheless, you know, like I said, it's already been written down about us going out there and prophesying on the highways and the byways. Matter of fact, let me grab something else first because this came to mind. I don't want to forget it. Where is it at? Okay. Yeah. It's like verse 17. Okay, it's right here. Actually, this is let me go up. Ecclesiasticus, or the book of Sirach in the Apocrypha, 36, and I'm gonna start at verse 11. Gather all the tribes of Jacob together and inherit them as from the beginning. All right. So basically, this is going into what, you know, 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 talk about. There had to be a falling away first. All right. So basically touching on what Psalms 83. Come, let us make the name of Israel be in no more remembrance, you know, roughly paraphrasing. All right, we was going to fall from our heritage and our customs and everything like that. We wouldn't know who we were. All right, then we were scattered into, like we just read, that the Most High was going to deliver us from the land of the north and from every land that we were scattered into, which we were scattered into the four corners of the earth. All right. Now we're coming into the time, again, like I was just quoting Ezekiel 37, of the valley of the dry bones, where now the flesh and the sinews is being brought back into the bones. All right, they all being sewn back together. They're being raised back up. They're being gathered back together. All right, now when you really think about it, going to Ezekiel 37, the valley of the dry bones. Let me read this real quick. Verse 12. Oh, Yahawah, have mercy upon the people that is called by thy name, and upon Israel who thou hast named thy firstborn. All right, hey, even the fact that you're an Israelite, first and foremost, like, yo, man, first of all, the whole Bible, the whole world is centered around you. Everything was made for our sake. The whole world and everything in it was centered around the Israelites. All right. So nevertheless, like the scripture said, he set the bounds of the people according to the number of the children of Israel. Everything revolves around the children of Israel. All right. But nevertheless, the fact of the matter, you gathering them back up again. All right. And then the Israelites and you being gathered back up, hey, that's a legacy in its own to be called, a child of the Most High, an actual child, not an imposter. Verse 13, oh, be merciful unto Jerusalem, thy holy city, the place of thy rest. All right, hey, the place, first and foremost, well, the people. All right, but we're going to talk about the land mass. All right, the land that we're going to possess is the land that the Most High chose as his favorite land. The people that he chose as his favorite people is what? The children of Israel, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. So when you look at all these things and put them all together, it's like, yo, you the main important people that the Most High is looking for. You the main people that the Most High is dealing with and checking for, man. And blessing and all the promises and so on and so forth was given unto you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, man. Not these other nations, man. These Moabites, these Hamites or whatever, whatnot. They all got room to be like, man, how come I wasn't chosen? Well, because it's the will of the Most High, man. Y'all, you had your little small time to reign and rule, but ultimately, it's all about Israel. Verse 14, fill Zion with thy unspeakable oracles and thy people with thy glory. All right. Verse 15, give testimony unto those that thou hast possessed from the beginning, and raise up prophets that have been in thy name. All right. So what? Again, it's a huge thing at the Most High. You think about this, like the scriptures say, how does it go? Darkness has covered the earth, and gross darkness the people. All right, going into that darkness is what? That confusion. All right, they all given over to a reprobate mind, basically. They all lost in the sauce. The rest was blinded. The wicked not gonna understand. So when you understand that all these people on the face of the earth, they all blinded. They don't know what the hell is going on, and so on and so forth, and everything like that. You have to understand that you are like a 1 in a million type situation right now. All right, when you go into the percentage wise, you have the 2/3 versus the 1/3, right? You got a pie chart of three equal parts. That's 33.3% in each part, right? 33.3 plus 33.3 is 66.6, which is the 2/3 that's going to be destroyed. All right, then you add another 33.3%, that's going to give you 99.9, right? Then you have, which that other 33.3% is the 1/3. All right, then that 0.1 out of the children of Israel, all right, is the 144,000. All right, that number alone, 144,000, that's a really, really small number. It's really small number. That's, there's more people in any given county than in that 144,000. You see what I'm saying? But nevertheless, when you take into account that only the Israelites are going to be saved, and only the 1/3 and the 144,000 going to be saved out of all the people on the face of the earth, well, there's going to be other people that's, not to say technically going to be saved. They're not going to wind up getting destroyed in this here destruction. All right, because the whole planet ain't gonna wind up dying. It's a lot of these, well, not to say a lot, but you're gonna have the elites of these Edomites that's gonna pretty much be saved for the first fruits of slavery. But they ain't gonna, they not being given the kingdom of heaven. They'll be in the kingdom of heaven, but they're gonna be there building it up. But nevertheless, out of all these people that's gonna wind up being delivered through these, exempt from this here judgment, that's a very small number, man. So for you to be a part of that number, and like Scripture also say in the book of Luke, blessed are your eyes will see the things that you see, and hear the things that you hear from many kings and prophets, the desire to see the things you see and not see them, and hear the things that you hear and have not heard them, man. So you like a 1 in a billion, 1 in multiple billion situation, the people on the face of the earth, because a lot of these people wish that they were the children of God, wish that they could be religious, wish that they could go to the Most High. They trying to choose the Most High, all right, but the Scripture say, no, you ain't chose me, I chose you. And ordained you, you know what I'm saying? Basically to be a pastor unto my sheep, But again, you have to take into account, like, yo, you literally hit the lottery. Like, you have better chances of hitting the fucking Powerball in every state, you know what I'm saying, every day of the week, you have better chances of that shit than you do of basically, you know, being chosen in this here truth, man. Because like I said, first and foremost, you got to be an Israelite. All right. Second of all, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? You have to be chosen to be a part of that elect number. All right. Continuing on, it says, verse 14 again, fill Zion with thy unspeakable oracles and thy people with thy glory. All right. So you was giving this here light, giving these eyes to see these things while everybody else is blinded. They don't see this destruction coming, but you see it. All right. And you vexed with this shit. So like they say, put that mark on the forehead of the men that sigh and cry for all the abominations that be done in the midst thereof. Everybody else is living it up. This is the best time. They living their best life right now. But what? The men of the Lord are sighing and crying for all the abominations that be done in the midst thereof. We see these things is going on, and we see that the earth is being ran under bad management right now. We're the ones that's crying out and praying to the Most High right now. Out of all these other people who's loving this place right now, everybody else is loving all of this shit. They caking with this shit, you know. But right now, you know, the men of the Lord is in this here truth, man. All right, and the 1/3 is diligently listening and learning and so on and so forth, man. We like the only people that you know, that's, how do I say, contrary to the rest of this here world, man. All right. Hey, if you were of the world would love you. All right. But being that we was taken out of this here world, the world's going to hate us. All right. But continuing on, it says, verse 15, give testimony unto those that thou hast possessed from the beginning, and raise up prophets that have been in thy name. Because when you really go into the scriptures and really go deep into this here thing, man, all right, the 144,000 basically are the creators of the earth, man. When you go back to like Genesis 1:1, and you go through all that, you actually translate the word like in the beginning, you know, God created this and God created that and so on and so forth. When you really go into that word, it's actually like Alahayim, or like, you know, they would tell you in church Elohim, which, you know, that word Alahayim is how you say, not a I guess you could say a plural word. You know, it's meaning multiple. Like you got car and then you got cars, right? But nevertheless, that word Alahayim. So in order to say God, right, you know, and I'll give you the translation, God means power, right? We say God in English. That's the English way of saying it. But nobody ever said God beforehand. Before that, they were saying the word Allah, which means the same thing, right? Now, dealing with these other these Arabs and stuff like that, you know, they actually have a stone, like a meteorite that I guess came from space that they worship, and they give I don't know if it's that or if it's the moon that they gave the name to Allah. But nevertheless, again, that word only goes into what? The word power, all right? That's your power source, all right? You know, you got a flashlight and the batteries is dead, you don't got no power source. But then you put new batteries in, that's your power source. So that's giving you the energy that you need. Just like us, the Israelites, that's going to give us all the things that we're going to get. We in captivity right now, but who finna give us this here kingdom? We ain't going to get up out of captivity on our own, by our own strength. No man shall buy you. That's part of the curses, man. We ain't going to deliver ourselves up out of here. We can't fight the so-called white man. We can't build up because we're under these curses, man. We did the tail and he's the head. But who's going to change that and change all these things up? You know, YAHAWASHI, all right? So, you know, the Lord, you know, that word, again, God means basically a power source. That's going to be our power source. But going back into, said, give testimony to those that thou hast possessed from the beginning. Going back to, you know, in the book of Genesis where they talk about God, you know, created this and that. That word is actually a plural word talking about powers, you know, or you could say in English, gods with an S, right? Lowercase with an S, meaning powers. When you go further into the scriptures, you find out about, in the beginning was the word, what is that? John 1:1, you know, on down, you know, and all things was made by him, for him, you know, talking about Yahawashi was the creator of all these things. You know, the Most High gave him, you know, it's like a homeowner or whatever, whatnot, drew up some plans or whatever, whatnot, and gave it to the contractor to go and build the house. Well, Yahawashi would be the head contractor, and then his employees would basically be the 144,000. All right, the angels that was basically with him creating these things. Then, you know, I just noticed I said the word angels, but hey, that also is in the scriptures, you know. I have said you are gods, but you shall die like men, like the princes, you know. But also the fallen ones, you know, there was giants in the earth in those days, but then they wound up there was a fall, you know, they wound up falling, and they was basically kept in these chains of darkness, everlasting chains of darkness, all right? And that's where we at now, all right? But what we desiring to go back to our first estate, all right? Because we wound up falling from our first estate, all right? So we're in these here bodies right now, but what we're desiring to be brought back into our first estate to being put in rulership and everything like that. And when you go into We can grab that too. Matthew chapter 19. You're going to sit on the 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. You're going right back to your main state. And how much more are the same people who created this earth, given the task to get this earth back in order, more or less to say, pushing out this here vibration, preparing the road for YAHAWASHI's return, ultimately to clean up this here earth, man. Who's going to be the first fruits and the heads, the new elites, man? All right, the same people who created the earth from the beginning. All right. So it says, give Ecclesiasticus or Sirach 36:15, give testimony unto those that thou hast possessed from the beginning, and raise up prophets that have been in thy name. Reward them that wait for thee, and let the prophets be found faithful. All right. So before I forget, because I had quoted this quite a few times and got 2 precepts in my mind that I don't want to forget. Ezekiel 37. Well, we'll just go to verse 10. We'll just read verse 10. All right, because this is talking about the valley of the dry bones. All right. Now, I made a reference to this right here. When you read from verse 15 on down to 20, all right, it says, let me just read one of these verses. Verse 18, and the children of thy people shall speak unto thee, saying, wilt thou not show us what thou meanest by these? All right, talking about these 2 sticks, again, like I was quoting earlier, about this here situation. Ezekiel, this wasn't happening in Ezekiel's time, man. This was something that he saw off into the future. This is talking about us today. All right, so when it says, verse 18, and when the children of thy people shall speak unto thee, saying, wilt thou not show us what thou meanest by these? All right. So guess what? The legacy of the men of the Lord that's on the highways and the byways right now with that sign out there, all right, you was already written about right here. We read like, Ezekiel wrote about you. All right, you was already written in these scriptures, man. All right, because we look at the people like Ezekiel, Paul, Peter, so on and so forth as these great men that they were so great that they have things written about them in the scriptures, so on and so forth. Well, how about this? You know about reincarnation, but we the same. The spirits of the prophets are subject to the prophets. So we're the same people that was from beforehand, all right? But nevertheless, even up into the same time that we're at now, the things in our works was written about right now, all right? So, talking about what is thou meanest by these, talking about when we're on the highways and the byways, and, Jake that don't know that they're Israelites, these so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, they'll walk by and they get a little offended by the sign because it'll say, on one side of like Judah, so on and so forth, Judah, Ephraim, Manasseh, Naphtali, Asher, Gad, Reuben, they'll Issachar, they'll wind up saying Simeon, they'll wind up, they'll see those names, but then on the other side, they have names like what? Negroes, Mexicans, Puerto Ricans, Cubans, Dominicans, so on and so forth. So you'll either see like, most of the time you might see like Ephraim, so-called Puerto Ricans walk up, or sometimes so-called Mexicans, Issacharites, or sometimes so-called black people, Judites. They'll walk up and then they'll get offended because they see the word Negro up there. What you mean Negroes? What y'all talking about over here? And they start seeing that, and then they see the slave ships or whatnot. But then, especially if you got camps, what I'm saying, where the whole camp ain't so-called Negroes or visually look like Negroes. You have, Northern Kingdom brothers in the camp or whatnot. And, hey, you may have some speckled birds, they look like Edomites in the camp. And then again, you have some so-called black people will walk up and be offended. Like, what you mean by so-called Negroes, right? That's the prophecy that you're reading right here, verse 18. And when the children of thy people shall speak unto thee, saying, wilt thou not show us what thou meanest by these? All right, talking about the sign out there. What you mean by this? Cuz, what? Oh, this is who you are biblically. All right, in the Bible, they didn't have so-called, a nation of people called so-called black people. They didn't have a nation called so-called white people. They didn't have a nation called so-called Mexicans. So if you're trying to find Mexicans in the Bible, you're not going to find that. All right, but you was definitely written about, and you like one of the most important people that there is in the whole scriptures. All right, but you're not going to find the name Mexicans in the Bible or Puerto Ricans in the Bible. All right, but nevertheless, let me get to the point that I want to get to. Ezekiel 37 and verse 10. It says, so I prophesied as he commanded me, and breath came unto them, and they lived and stood upon their feet, an exceedingly great army. Going back into what? The valley of the dry bones, all right? And us prophesying, again, here goes another prophecy that Ezekiel, this didn't happen in Ezekiel's time. Ezekiel lived way before Yahawashi lived, right? Well, we put it this way. He lived way before Paul lived, right? And Paul said that, I'm an Israelite, I'm saying? I'm from the tribe of Benjamin. So he knew that he was an Israelite, you see what I'm saying? But nevertheless, and then that was all the way up. That was like, when Yahawashi was on the scene, so we could calculate that to be about 2,000 years ago well, we knew who we were. Now you can look up some maps at like the 1700s, and you have over in the west coast of Africa, all right, like around the area of what's modern day called today Benin and Cameroon. I believe it was actually Benin, all right, Benin. That was basically, if you look at it, like, I believe it was the 1700s. If you look at it like a 1700 map, it would say not Negro land. Actually, Negro land would be like the westernmost top part of Africa, like Nigeria and stuff like that. That was, you can go look at a map on that, say Negro land. All right, but then before that map came out, you had a place called the Kingdom of Judah, all right, which was in Benin. All right, and these ain't these Hamites, because you have to understand the history and the things that happened. All right, we fled Israel, which is on the west or the east coast, basically, of Africa. All right, because you understand Egypt, right? You know, like a 3-day journey walking, all right, from Egypt to Israel. All right, they side by side. They only really separated by what, the Suez Canal, that peninsula called. Nevertheless, that one little spot right there, you know. But nevertheless, you know, we was in the eastern coast of Africa, all right. Then we wound up getting caught up into what they call the sub-Saharan slave trade by the Arabs. Or they took us into captivity, all right. And then they basically marched us from one side of Africa to the other side. That's how we got from the east coast to the west coast, all right. Then that's why you see, like on the maps back in the olden days, this huge area called Negro land. That was the Israelites living there, all right. And that whole area over there, you know what I'm saying, was basically where the Israelites was living. It wasn't really no Hamites over there. It was just us. All right, and this is the same, what they call nowadays, like the slave coast, the Gold Coast, and stuff like that, where the slave ships came from. All right, but nevertheless, this is, like I said, Ezekiel and them, like I said, Ezekiel lived far before Paul and them. All right, and Paul and them knew that they was Israelites. All right, so you had to have that falling away first, to where we would fall off and not know that we're Israelites. Then now we're reading that we're coming back. All right, he was prophesying, and then there stood up that exceedingly great army. That exceedingly great army is talking about right now in these times. All right, you've been this on the highways and the byways. You do look. You reading about your legacy right here, man. All right. We just read about how Most High was going to raise up, gather the tribes of Israel as from before. All right, and those that prophesy in the name of the Most High. All right. So let me go from there real quick. This is Hebrews 6:10. All right, because you know, like I was just going into you know what? Let me grab something before that. So we just read about the valley of the dry bones, right? And how it said, I prophesied as I was commanded. What am I looking for? It says, I prophesied as I was commanded, and lo, there arose that exceedingly great army, all right? So knowing about that and putting your hand to the plow, right? Well, I want to say verse 27. We're going to go to Matthew 19, verse 27. It says, Then answered Peter and said unto him, Behold, we have forsaken all and have followed thee. What shall we have therefore? So we read a little earlier in Jeremiah about, I'm going to send for many fishers and they shall fish them. All right. Then raise up from the valley of the dry bones. Right. And then they, prophesied into the wind. Then those dry bones became living flesh again. And the Most High blew the breath of life into them, that spirit, the Holy Spirit into them. Then they went out on the highways and the byways and they started fishing more the elect in. And guess what? What arose? That exceedingly great army. All right. That's going to stand in great boldness in the face of those that afflicted them, But nevertheless, also, like the scripture say, the saints is going to take the kingdom. All right. So going into here, reading between the lines of what's Peter talking about, because again, we talking about in these times, they also did the same thing back then, but talking about in these times, in this here time that we living in, where it's so much so-called freedom to do all this here wickedness and, do all these different things or whatever, whatnot, we gave up our life and the things that was therein to do this here work, man. All right. Verse 27. Then answered Peter and said unto him, Behold, we have forsaken all and followed thee. What shall we have therefore? And YAHAWASHI said unto them, Verily I say unto you, that ye which have followed me in the regeneration, when the Son of Man shall sit in the throne of his glory, you shall also sit upon 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. So again, this ain't happened yet, but guess what? The men that stood so stiffly for the name of the Lord, all right, that was out there in the highways and the byways prophesying for all the abominations that be done in the midst thereof, they're going to want to be in the first fruits, all right, and join heirs with YAHAWASHI, all right? And they're also going to get crowns, they're also going to get thrones, and then they're going to also be like the new elite, the first fruits. They're going to be putting out judgment on how things are supposed to be going. Like, don't nothing move on this here earth, ultimately it's the Most High's plan, but unless what the Rothschilds pretty much sign off on it. They the ones that's creating all these different things and so on and so forth, But ultimately, when we get into the kingdom, it's going to be a little different. It's going to be us instead of the Rothschilds. Verse 29, and everyone that has, verse 29, and everyone that has forsaken houses or brethren or sisters or father or mother or wife or children or lands for my name's sake shall receive 100-fold and shall inherit everlasting life. All right, so look, we wind up giving up everything in this here journey and everything like that. People look down upon us and like, y'all bugged out, y'all just, man, you fell off, bro. You used to be the man, homie. But then what happened to you now? You out here looking all scruffy and shit like that, whatever, whatnot, and so on and so forth, man. But nevertheless, hey, I'll grab that next too. Verse 30. But many that are first shall be last, and the last shall be first. Because we at the bottom of the barrel now. But guess what? Like the scriptures also say, as a curse, we was gonna be the tail and he was gonna be the head. But Deuteronomy 30:7 says that what? The Most High was gonna take the curses off of us and put it on our enemies. So there's gonna be a change up. We gonna wind up being, the first nation over all these other nations. But then also the men of the Lord that was in this here truth gonna be the first fruits on a higher spectrum, of the elites than the rest of these, 2/3 or whatever, whatnot. We're gonna wind up bringing them back, raising them up, having children. They're gonna want to be our children. All right. Verse 29 again. And everyone that has forsaken houses or brethren or sisters or father or wife or children or lands for my name's sake shall receive 100-fold and shall inherit everlasting life. Now let's go to Hebrews 6 and 10. It says, for Yahawah is not unrighteous to forget your work and labor of love. All right. It says, which you showed towards his name, and that you have ministered to his saints and do minister. So first and foremost, this is all we really need is the Most High to acknowledge what we're doing. You know what I'm saying? He's not going to forget the labor of love that we wind up doing, man. Like I said, man, a lot of our legacy is already written down in these scriptures of how we was going to wind up doing it. About like those that's not going to receive the mark of the beast. All right. That's already written down in the scriptures that, the 144,000 and the 130, they're not going to take that their chip. Also going back into Matthew 19, it's like, the Most High seen that you gave up all these different things just to preach this here word and become what? The last in this here society, You got some brothers that then came into this truth right around the time they was like 18 or fresh out of high school and stuff like that, ain't really lived a so-called young man life and go out and do, you weren't even 21 yet. You ain't never really went out to a bar or a club like that, but you gave all that up, in your weekends to do this here truth, man. You know what I'm saying? You may have had, a woman that made you choose between, doing this here work, preaching on the weekends or whatever, whatnot, or paying her attention. And he was like, I got to rock with the Lord, So these are things that basically the Most High is not going to forget about. This is not a small feat, man. How many of these other people can't give up certain things in this here society, man? You see it all the time, man, from people who, they be like, I can't give this up or I can't give that up or whatever, whatnot. They would be just stuck in their little ways or whatever, whatnot, in any type of scenario, But guess what? The men of the Lord wind up, hearkening to the word of the Lord and returning back, into the righteous ways, This is Daniel chapter 12, verse 1 and 2, actually. It says, and at that time shall Michael stand up, that great prince which stand for the children of thy people, and there shall be a time of trouble such as never since there was a nation, even unto that same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, everyone that's found written in the book. That's not really the point I wanted to grab, but hey, same and all in that same scenario, 2/3 of Israel is going to get cut off, but what? The Lord's going to send that hedge and set up that standard for what? The 1/3 and 144,000, and that's also written. That's a legacy that you're like, dog, how did these niggas wind up not getting destroyed? How was they, again, like Noah and the ark, man, going back to Noah, man. All right, how come all the other people that wind up drowning, they don't got no stories besides, they got drowned? It's like it says, and at that time thy people shall be delivered, everyone that should be found written in the book. You can go Revelation chapter 7 and read, basically what 1 through 9, and you can find out about 144,000 and then the 1/3, it's gonna basically be saved, Verse 2, and many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt. So guess what, man? The men of the Lord that's gonna want to transition from this here side, man, they're gonna go and wake up to a how you say everlasting light, you know, or everlasting life. You know, they're gonna want to be in the first fruits, getting these spiritual powers and so on and so forth, man. The world's gonna marvel and glory, you know, they're gonna be in awe of the glory of the men of the Lord, man. Let me grab a couple more real quick and we'll close out. Let me just I'm gonna just read verse 19 and 20. Zephaniah 3 and 19, it says, Behold, at the time will I do Salat. Behold, at the time I will undo all that afflict thee, and I will save her that helleth or halteth, and gathereth her that was driven out, and I will get them praise and fame in every land where they have been put to shame. So going back to Matthew 19, all right, you giving up this here world and this here life that you got, man, and you won't really understand this until you actually in this here truth, man. People find out about what you're doing or whatever, whatnot. Ultimately, they ain't even got to find out about what you're doing. Their spirit will understand that your spirit is on a different wavelength than them, and they don't want to be so-called, what is that? John 3, I want to say verse 17, all right, or 18, talking about, you know, they don't want to come to the light because why? Their deeds are evil, all right? They don't want to come to the light because they don't want to be exposed, all right? But nevertheless, going back into you know, Israel or the elect, you know, giving everything up in this here world or whatever, whatnot, you know, the Most High is not unrighteous to forget your works and your labor of love, all right? But then all at the same time, man, you know, we were being put to shame. We're at the bottom of the barrel. People laugh and scoff at us or whatever. Get a job, you bumite, or whatever, whatnot. You know, they call us pedophiles and rapists and whatever, whatnot. But guess what? The Lord, hey, then you gonna know there's a prophet that has been among you. But then it's gonna be known who are the Lord's servants, man. All right. But so there's a great reward and a great legacy that's gonna be laid down for you. All right. Oh, I wrote this down. Get this two more, and we're gonna close out. This is Malachi 3 and 16. Then they that feared Yahawah spake often to one another, like we're doing right now. All right. This is how, you know, first and foremost, we're going back, you know, to the men of the Lord before all these things happen. You know, they wound up, you know, first before it was written, they, you know, had the oral law, whatever, whatnot. But then now it's been written down. They recite and rehearse, you know, the scrolls or whatever, whatnot, you know. It says Malachi 3 and 16. Then they that fear Yahweh often spake one to another, and Yahweh hearkened and heard it. And a book of remembrance was written before him for them that feared Yahweh and that thought upon his name. So look, we have these scriptures, all right, that was written, all right, especially about, you know, all the men of the Lord or whatever, whatnot, you know, that had faith in the Most High and all their works and everything like that. It was all written about, and the scriptures have been around ever since, you know, the beginning. All right, I mean, it wasn't all in part, you know what I'm saying, but nevertheless, you know, as the scriptures was all written down, that's still been going throughout the sands of time. Salat. Last precept. This is the book of 2nd Ezra, chapter 2. I want to say it's what's at the end here? This is it right here. Second Ezra 2 and verse 42. It says, And I, Ezra, saw upon the Mount Zion a great people, whom I could not number, and they all praise Yahweh with songs. All right, that actually links up with Revelation 7, and I want to say verse 9, I'm talking about out of every nation, kindred, and tongues, you know what I'm saying? That's talking about Israelites that were scattered into the four corners of the earth. All right, you got some so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans that was brought up over there in China that may not even look like so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, but we were scattered to the four corners of the earth. We're going to be delivered from the four corners of the earth. All right. Verse, it says, and they all praise Yahweh with songs. Verse 43, and in the midst of them there were in the midst of them there was a young man of a high stature, taller than all the rest, and upon every one of their heads he set crowns, and was more exalted, which I marveled at greatly. So guess what? The men of the Lord, those joint heirs, the first fruits, man. Yahawashi is gonna come. Yahawashi is gonna come and take the crowns off the heads of these kings that's on the earth now. Esau that's ruling, and guess what? He's gonna give it to the 144,000 being the first fruits, the elite. How you say, the elites, basically. You know what I'm saying? The head of this new kingdom. All right. So it says, hey, and how much more of a legacy you think there's gonna be? It's already written here, but think about how much more of a legacy when we wake up in the kingdom of heaven or whatever, whatnot. The scriptures say, we read it. Some gonna wake up to everlasting shame and contempt. All right, they gonna know, like, damn, man, this was my brother back in the world. Like my physical brother, or this was my dad back in the world, my son back in the world, or this was my best friend back in the world, or this was some dude I laughed and scoffed at. But nevertheless, because why? That legacy that you wound up leaving, you're gonna still be remembered. All right, your works do follow. All right, but continuing on. Verse 44, so I asked the angel and said, sir, what are these? Verse 45, see, it was being inquired about already, all right? And he answered and said unto me, these are they that have put off the mortal clothing and have put on the immortal and have confessed the name of Yahweh, and now are they crowned and receive palms. All right, so these are going to be the men that stood, well, we're going to keep reading. Matter of fact, is it right here? Yeah, all right. Verse 46. Then said I unto the angel, what young person is it that crowneth them and giveth them palms in their hands? So he answered and said unto me, it is the Son of the Most High, whom they have confessed in the world. Then began I greatly to commend them that stood so stiffly for the name of the Lord. So, hey, the men of the Lord that's been standing so stiffly on these names and prophesying and preaching and pushing at those names out there in the world, man, you're going to be recognized for that, man. All right, the Most High is not unrighteous to forget your works and your labor of love, which you showed towards his saints by ministering unto them. All right. Verse 48, and the angel said unto me, go thy way and tell thy people what manner of things and how great wonders of Yahweh thy power thou hast seen. So ultimately going into this, we were just reading here in 2nd Ezra, that those men, they're going to be ultimately rewarded 100-fold for all the things they wind up giving up. You know what I'm saying? But they also going to have these crowns on their heads to be the first fruits, joint heirs with Yahawashi at this point in time. All right, put these niggas in subjection and captivity, being the first fruits of all of that. All right, this is what the heritage of the men of the Lord have. All right, and like I said, you can read some of your legacy already in these here scriptures. All right, like we're reading right here. This ain't taking place yet. All right, but nevertheless, the Most High is not gonna forget your works and your labor of love that you show towards His name and ministering to His servants. Putting off that mortal clothing and putting on that immortality. Standing so stiffly for the name. All right, those works ain't gonna be forgotten about. All right, this is gonna go down. It's already gone down in the history. All right, but how much more when we actually get into the kingdom of heaven? All right, so I just wanted to touch on that there lesson. Like I said, it was just something real deep to go into. About this here legacy that we're leaving on this here earth, and that's our work's gonna follow. It's gonna more than likely be talked about in the kingdom of heaven. Like, man, y'all remember we was down bad? We didn't even know who the fuck we was. We was very dry bones. We didn't know nothing about nothing. But then we got raised up. One brother at a time. Until we got rolling and we had camps and we started waking up, the multitude of the elect, But I'm going to go ahead and close out with that. Lord willing, the elect was edified with this here lesson. Until next time, I say, call halal Yahawah, Bahashim, Yahawashi, Bahashim, Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone that taught us this truth and that rule well. And citation, much love for you. I can pushing this truth and sincerity on the four corners of the earth and enduring afflictions to feed and edify the elect. Until next time, I say, stay strong and shalom.